My name is Jeff Wall. I'm a photographer from Vancouver, Canada. Since it's the first time I showed here, we wanted to have a reasonable selection of pictures that showed the different directions my work's gone in over the past 30 or so years. Because a lot of the things I started doing in the 70s I'm still doing, they still can represent at least that direction of what I'm trying to do. We have in this room 3 new pieces from 2011 that were completed just the last half year. I've probably gotten known for a kind of picture that I do that's done in collaboration with people, where I'm working like a bit like a film director, so that the things that happen in the pictures have been structured and performed. But that's not all I do. So in the show we have examples of that, but also straight photographs that have no performance, none of that. And I think that it's the relation between the two kinds of photography that interests me. I'm not really interested in one or the other as such, but in the relation between the two. I work with film, and I feel that film is an amazing technology that still is probably the most powerful means of capturing an image. So the hurry to abandon it, I think, is something people are going to regret before too long. I don't feel that one picture has any necessary relation to another. I consider them singular, so they stand on their own. I imagine people might think, well, these pictures do look like one person made them, but they're not very similar necessarily, or they don't repeat each other, or at least I hope they don't. I don't have to go in the street and capture something as it happens. I can do that, but I don't have to do it. So I'm free to have any starting point I want for my work. So in the case of the picture of the 2 boys boxing, the starting point for that picture was probably my own personal memory of boxing with my brother 50 years ago. And it struck me that boxing is a complex form of violence, because it's not really just about violence and aggression. Boxing is regulated by style, rules, technique, and it's a kind of institution almost. There's something cultural about it. So when you're boxing, you've already accepted a certain relationship to culture, even though it's expressed through, let's say, conflict or even kind of violence. So that put those 2 boys into an interesting relation, and my brother and I were probably also in that relation. So that seemed to me just the way that the picture could begin. I'm a photographer like any other photographer. There's only one difference. I don't take photographs. That's the only difference. I do everything that other photographers do, except I don't take the pictures. And by not taking the pictures, I feel I create a different space for myself. I could have easily gone to a concert and photographed a band, but I like the idea that by not photographing, I start photography off on a different foot. So then it becomes a kind of reconstruction of what didn't get photographed. And then in that process of reconstruction, I have certain freedom. And I also then have the advantage of certain techniques of reconstruction that I can use. The lack of color is a fascinating part of what photography is, and I always wanted to practice it. So as soon as I could, I did. However, I never know whether I'm going to do a work in color or not. So sometimes I started working on something in color and changed to black and white in the process, sometimes the other way around. Working in black and white is not necessarily, for me, a way of connecting to the beginning of photography, although I think that's important. It's simply to work in the medium in all its dimensions: black and white, color, transparent, opaque. So black and white is a part of my repertoire. That's how I see it. Well, I noticed that kids were playing war on the computer, their video games, whereas in my day we played outside with toy weapons. So I thought, do I ever see children playing outside war? And I realized I rarely ever did. So here you see a little prison fort. They've captured some prisoners, and I guess the game is the prisoners have to stay there. That struck me as a good moment, an interesting moment, where there's this action here of the confinement and the relationship between the prisoners and the guard, but at the same time there's a squad out in the field ready for more combat. It seemed like it captured a lot of the game, not just one dimension of it, but in a way two dimensions at the same time. I think that's a common way of looking at photography, that black and white somehow represents truth and color doesn't, but I don't believe in that. The real reason I did it in black and white was that there were just too many colors. My response to any picture, whether in terms of whether it's going to be in color or black and white, is just somehow whether the color adds to the something that I'm trying to do, or whether I feel it's an obstacle. The transparency in the light box creates a very specific effect. It glows and it attracts attention in a way that no picture not illuminated can do. The presence of the light has the effect of slightly intensifying the illusion of the actual. You have a feeling that there's a little bit more than a picture there, as if there's something added to the picture. It's a bit like a very powerful horse. You have to learn how to control it, because it has so much energy, it can run away from you. I think if you're a film photographer, you're not so different than you were 30 or 40 years ago. We still have the same cameras, same film, and so on. If you aren't using film, then you will be more plunged into this whole world of new software and cameras and so on. At the moment, I'm not interested in that because I don't think that digital recording is very good. It's true now that with the smart cameras and all that, you don't really need to know how to do anything. Whether that's good or bad, or somewhere in between, we don't really know yet. A new type of photography is probably emerging, a new kind of amateur photography which anyone can do. And that will probably change the shape of how photography exists in the world. And probably it means that anyone with a telephone can make a great photograph. The problem with that is, can you make a second one?